Welcome to our explainer. Now, what if I told you that the original Sleeping Beauty wasn't actually awakened by true love's kiss? What if the real story was so deeply disturbing that Disney had to literally rewrite almost the entire thing? Well, behind the beautiful castle, the magical fairies, and that famous romantic kiss lies a centuries-old nightmare, a tale absolutely filled with betrayal, violence, jealousy, and brutal revenge. Today, we're uncovering the shocking original story of Sleeping Beauty and taking a hard look at exactly why it became one of the darkest fairy tales ever told. Okay, let's dive into this. We all know the classic image, right? Princess Aurora pricks her finger, falls asleep for 100 years, and is magically awakened by a handsome prince's kiss. It's hands down one of Disney's most beloved and iconic fairy tales. But what if true love's kiss was actually a total lie? That hopeful version is just a modern adaptation, an illusion carefully created to entertain us, because the original story, written hundreds of years ago, dramatically shatters that illusion completely. There is just a stark, visceral contrast between the two. On one side, we have the familiar Disney tropes we all grew up with, magic, true love's kiss, and hope. But on the other side, we have the themes of the original author, Giambattista Basile, betrayal, violence, and incredibly brutal revenge. This isn't just a slight difference in tone, it's like looking at a completely different universe. You see, fairy tales back then simply were not meant to entertain children. They were actually grim, heavy warnings for adults about the real dangers of life, the abuse of power, and human cruelty. Part 1. The Unescapable Curse, Talia's Fate. To truly understand the real Sleeping Beauty, we have to strip away the name Aurora entirely. Our original princess is named Talia, and to find her, we need to travel all the way back to the year 1634. That's when Giambattista Basile wrote one of the earliest famous versions of this tale, chillingly titled Sun, Moon, and Talia. And right from the start, things look grim. When Talia is born, astrologers predict her life will be deeply endangered by a tiny, seemingly harmless piece of flax. Let's move to and see how this builds, because it's this incredibly suspenseful, inescapable march of fate. First, the astrologers make their grim prophecy at her birth. Terrified, her father, the king, removes every single spinning wheel and spindle from the palace during her childhood. He truly believes he's defeated fate. But you can't outrun destiny, right? In her youth, while exploring the palace, Talia discovers an old woman spinning thread. Curious, she touches the spindle. A tiny piece of flax slips right under her fingernail. Instantly, the curse takes hold, and she collapses into a deep, death-like sleep from which literally no one can wake her. Part 2. A disturbing awakening. The king arrives. Believing his daughter is gone forever, Talia's grieving father abandons her inside a luxurious, hidden forest palace. Years pass. Eventually, a totally different king is hunting in those silent woods. His falcon leads him to the abandoned castle, where he discovers Talia, just sleeping peacefully. He tries to wake her, but nothing works. And so the crucial point is, there is absolutely no romantic kiss here. In Brazil's original tale, the hunting king takes advantage of the unconscious Talia, simply leaves the castle, and goes straight back to his own kingdom. There is no happy ending here. At least, not yet. What happens next is a truly bizarre sequence of events. Months later, while Talia is still fast asleep, she gives birth to twins, named Sun and Moon. One day, while trying to nurse, one of the babies accidentally sucks that tiny piece of flax right out of Talia's finger. The very moment that flax is removed, the curse is broken and Talia finally wakes up. Just imagine her reality in that exact moment. She has absolutely no idea how much time has passed, nor does she understand where these two children even came from. She wakes up to a world that has completely, entirely changed around her. Part 3. The Queen's Gruesome Revenge. And this brilliantly illustrates how the narrative pivots into pure thriller territory. The king eventually returns to the forest, finds Talia awake with two children, and they actually fall in love. But there's a massive catch. The king is already married. When his actual wife, the queen, discovers this secret second family, she creates a blood-soaked checklist for vengeance. First, she orders the twins to be kidnapped. Next, she secretly commands the royal cook to kill the babies, boil them, and serve their flesh to the king during dinner. Finally, she plans to have Talia burned alive. This isn't your typical cartoon villainy. This is raw, terrifying brutality. Fortunately, there is a tiny glimmer of humanity in this absolute nightmare. The royal cook bravely disobeys the queen's horrific order. Instead of committing this atrocity, he hides the children safely away and prepares animal meat as a substitute. The king unknowingly eats the substitute meal, while the queen sits right there, fully believing her terrible, sickening plan has actually succeeded. But even then, she isn't satisfied. The fiery climax of this story is incredibly cinematic. The queen turns her final burning wrath toward Talia, ordering her to be thrown alive into a massive fire. But just as Talia is about to be cast into the flames, the king arrives. He learns everything. The cook steps forward to reveal that the twins are actually alive, and the queen's horrendous crimes are completely exposed. In Basile's version, it's the queen who is executed, thrown into the very fire she built. The king then marries Talia, and only after all this unimaginable bloodshed does the story finally come to an end. Part 4. Why Fairy Tales Were Dark. Now, what's really interesting about this is, you might be wondering why such a macabre, deeply disturbing story was ever written in the first place. Well, it comes down to a clear divide between eras. 17th century fairy tales were crafted specifically for adults. They were cautionary, reflecting a fundamentally unfair life. Modern fairy tales, like Disney's 1959 adaptation, were reshaped for children. They're hopeful, focusing heavily on good triumphing over evil. Disney removed almost everything disturbing. The highly problematic king became the heroic Prince Philip, the traumatized Talia became Princess Aurora, and that horrific betrayal was replaced by a magical true love's kiss, with the jealous human queen totally transformed into the iconic, magical villain we know as Maleficent. But those original cautionary themes were absolutely vital at the time. They acted as dark mirrors reflecting the very real, brutal societal fears of the 17th century adult world. People were facing the constant threat of inescapable death, the harsh reality of forced marriages, rampant abuse of power, betrayal, and the raw, everyday struggle for survival. These stories served as stark reminders that life wasn't always fair and that profound evil could exist anywhere, even hidden right behind the beautiful walls of royal palaces. Part 5. Meaning behind the myth. Beyond the shocking violence and historical context, there's actually a deep psychological symbolism hidden beneath the surface of this horror. Scholars have spent years analyzing the core elements of Sleeping Beauty to understand what they really represent. The spinning wheel, for example, isn't just a magical prop. It's a powerful symbol of destiny and fate. It represents the idea that no matter how hard you try, like Talia's father hiding the spindles, you cannot completely escape what is meant to happen. Meanwhile, that long, death-like sleep is widely believed by scholars to represent the transition from childhood to adulthood. It's a period of intense change and waiting. These elements are profound warnings that appearances often hide much darker truths, effectively preserving the values and the anxieties of the society that originally created them. So the Sleeping Beauty most of us grew up with is really just one highly sanitized version of a much, much older, darker tale. The original reminds us that our most beloved bedtime stories were once unsettling mirrors of very real human fears. So I want to leave you with this question. Which version do you find more fascinating? The magical classic you thought you knew, or this haunting, incredibly complex original tale? Definitely think about that next time you watch a classic animated movie. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden history with us, don't forget to subscribe and join me here on our explainer for even more literary mysteries.